Welcome, traveler, to the massive Path of Exile 2 rework. There's not only Act 4, no, there's massive things coming, including the longest patch notes you have ever seen. And I'll break down all the important things for you. First, we're getting Act 4. The story continues. You get to explore new islands that I'm not even trying to pronounce and dive into the history of the Karui tribes. There will be over 20 new bosses that are obviously also available in the endgame, plus new pinnacle challenges. And cruel difficulty is going away. Yes, you're going to play Act 4, and then in the Third Edict, you no longer need to play through the game twice in order to get to the endgame. We're introducing 3 new temporary interlude acts as a set of stories featuring 19 new areas and 12 new bosses that will take you to level 65. We return to Ogum to help Renly rebuild the village. You go to the Vestiri Desert again to help Asala fulfilling her sacred duty. And then we also have Doriani's Contingency, where we climb into a mountain and I think we find this hidden fallout bunker. On top of the Abyss is coming to patch 030. There will be fissures throughout the world where demons are crawling out and you get to fight them off for massive loot. This is also going to end in the endgame maps, and you have to seal abysses to then fight the new pinnacle challenge, called the Vessel of Kulamuk. We gotta discover ancient spires, then challenge the abyssal commanders, and that will then lead us into the new pinnacle boss. Most notably, we're getting a sprint feature to move faster through everything. People have been asking for mounts, smaller maps, more teleports. This is their solution. It works that you roll, and if you then hold down the dodge button, you just sprint endlessly, as long as you want. And I kind of like this. I didn't want horses. I'm not looking for the Diablo experience to horse, unhorse, horse, unhorse, horse, unhorse. No. If I'm in a map, if I want to move fast through, if I don't want to kill enemies, if I'm overleveled already, if I just want to get to certain position eggs, I'll roll, hold it down, and then bam, just sprint through. It's amazing. And this brings us to one of my favorite changes. Support gems have been completely reworked. You can now use as many copies of the same support gem on your character as you like, and each support gem now has multiple tiers, allowing you to upgrade them as you progress through the game. For example, Double Barrel Run. Supported skills have 30% less reload speed and they have an additional bolt. You're using that in the beginning on the Mercenary for the Bomb Bomb shotgun skill. On tier 2, it has 20% less reload speed. Okay, I like that. That's simple. It doesn't increase in cost, it doesn't increase in support requirements, nothing. And then on tier 3, it still has 20% reload speed, but supported skills reload automatically when heavy stunning an enemy with them. Intriguing. New ways to play with new ways of the skills to interact with the world. Then we got major balance changes and new skills. That's what we'll deep dive with the patch notes. While there are also crafting updates, new items, new endgame maps, new endgame encounters, new rewards, lineage support gems. Finally, an asynchronous trade system. In the Third Edict, we're introducing a long-anticipated feature, asynchronous trade. This new system allows you to buy items from other players without requiring the seller to be present. That should be explained more in the patch notes. Let's begin with Act 4, because it's going to be an interesting one. Journey to King's March, hire a ship, set sail, visit the islands. The interesting part is, there are going to be multiple islands. Act 4 is completely non-linear, and you can visit the islands in any order you choose, which means that each playthrough can be different. Obviously, there might be an optimal way to do it. Being said, explore and have fun. Rise of the Abyssal League. Start fresh in a new economy with the Rise of the Abyssal League. In 030, you have to begin from the very beginning again. So you're not able to start your standard character that you already have and play the Abyssal League. This is a start from point zero. Everything empty. Created by forbidden necromantic magic during the Age of Precursors, the Abyssals have been biding their time underground. Now obeying the will of their general, they are emerging from the depths through fissures spreading across all of Redclast. In your travels throughout Redclast, you will encounter fissures in the ground, sapping the life force of monsters above. Slaying these monsters will trigger the Abyssal to emerge, enhanced with extra necromantic abilities from those whose power they were draining. You'll need to defeat them to close the Abyss. Abyss increase in size, power, and variety as you go through the game. Closing them will reveal the Abyssal Troves with massive loot. And they will also sometimes allow you to travel underground to engage with the Abyssal directly. As you close abysses, you may find ancient bones that can be used to imbue your items with abyssal magic, adding hidden abyssal modifiers. Using the Well of Souls, which you discover in Act 2, you can reveal the Desecrated modifier and choose to transform it by selecting one of the 3 different options. During the campaign, this allows you to more easily craft additional regular mods onto your items. During the endgame, new and powerful mods that were not previously possible to craft will be unlocked. The Well of Souls can also affect your waystones, granting new modifiers that will push difficulty and rewards to new heights. Here we get some example. You can find the Preserved Vertebra, desecrate a rare waystone, or a Preserved Rib, desecrate a rare armor. And then on the right side, there's an Altar Robe, and we can add Chaos Resistance, Reduced Attribute Requirements, or Fire Resistance as a bonus modifier on the bottom. I would like to get that on one of my two-handed hammers, the Reduced Attribute Requirements. Now to the bread and butter of the Mayor Character Balance Overhaul. In 030, we're making very significant changes to character balances across the entire game. Our goal is to increase build diversity that was said in a Chinese interview before. Support gem are an area that gets some of the most major changes in the core design. They are what enabled so many interesting mechanics in different ways to play. But POT's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues in the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your character. We didn't want builds to become just using the same 5 most powerful supports in every skill. But we also wanted to encourage you to combo your abilities. We removed the restriction on having one of each support gem per character. You can use as many copies as you like. I don't think I have to tell you how huge that is that we can use multiple of the same support gems, especially for totems, for example, because totems always had a limited amount. Or for my grenades, I was using payload for grenades that make them explode again. And I could only use this on my main grenade. But if I now can use it on my gas grenades, pop up, double explosion, explosive grenade, pop up, double explosion, flash grenade, pop up. But please, sir, I will have to replay every single class and every single ascendancy. Many supports now have multiple tiers as you progress through the game, providing different stat values, additional stats, or perhaps working a bit different to their lower tier counterparts. Due to these changes, many existing support gems, which will now be tier 1 for cases where multiple tiers exist, have received small numerical balance changes, and the effects of some support gems have been combined into a single gem. There are also 11 new support gems with 030. We introduced 40 lineage supports, much more powerful supports that are only available in the endgame. We have 3 examples for you here. Zarek's Refrain supported spell Echo 2 times. You need to be level 65 for that, and you should be able to use multiple of these as well if you feel like it. Rakiata's Flow hits with a supported skill treat enemy monsters' elemental resistant value as inverted. Wait, does that mean instead of having plus 65 resistance, they would have minus 65 resistance? Very good for a thrust damage monk, probably. And Ratha's Assault, category double barrel. Supported crossbow ammunition skills cannot reload. Supported skills load 3 bolts when you dodge. Supported skills load 3 additional bolts. Oh yeah, that's going to make explosive shot quite nasty if you want to. Now to the bread and butter, new content and features, and they're actually showing us new gems. A new strength skill gem, Fortifying Cry. Perform a war cry that grants guard and causes subsequent shield attacks to release an empowered shockwave when dealing damage. You're banging your shield with your hammer. This skill's cooldown can be bypassed by expanding an endurance charge. The next strength skill is Forge Hammer. Hurl a fiery hammer that slams into the ground and lodges there. While the hammer is lodged in the ground, reusing the skill recalls the hammer and resets the skill's cooldown. Alternatively, using a war cry near the lodged hammer causes it to shatter, releasing a number of molten fissures in a spiral. That would be actually this skill here. Throw the hammer, yell, spiral fire. I like it. On to the next strength skill, Ancestral Cry. Perform a war cry using glory gained by igniting enemies to turn you into an embodiment of Kayum. While embodying Kayum, your footsteps trigger volcanic steps, melee strikes and slams are ancestrally boosted, and your melee attacks hit triggers volcanic eruptions. Finally, a more fire-oriented playstyle. I was missing this. Dexterity skill gem, Toxic Domain. Create an area of toxic bloom on the ground around you. While in the bloom, you have increased skill cost, regenerate life, and your projectile attacks attach a toxic pustule, which can be poisoned. Pustules will detonate after a duration or when enough poison has been applied, dealing damage and applying poison in an area around it. So a complete poison overload. Ice-tipped arrows. Ready your active bow or spear, empowering your next barrageable bow or projectile spear attacks to create ice fragments on hit. This skill's cooldown can be bypassed by expending a frenzy charge. Into the intelligence skill gems. Frost darts. Conjure a number of icy projectiles that launch towards the target. Projectiles that hit a chilled or frozen target create chunks of ice that deal additional damage on impacting the ground. Consume a cold infusion if possible to cause each projectile to lodge into the enemy, then explode. Wonder if you could use this with wild charge and just shoot like insane amount of ice darts out. Then a strength persistent buff gem, Iron Ward, while active, stores a percentage of the physical damage that is prevented by your armor or other sources of damage reduction. Using this skill releases the stored damage as a nova of spikes. That's kind of cute. Added a new strength dexterity persistent buff gem. Mortar cannon. Raise a cannon totem which uses socketed grenade skills which significantly improve cooldown recovery. Oh boy. Oh boy. Dexterity persistent buff. Mirage Archer. While active, dodge rolling will create a mirage that uses a socketed range attacks for short duration, then vanish. You cannot create another mirage while one exists or for short time after one vanishes. Dodge rolling while you're unable to create a new mirage will restart this timer. So you're limited in the amount of rolls you can do and gotta make sure to always roll and get a mirage. Intelligence buff. Ravenous Swarm. While active and enemies are nearby, swarms of insects emerge from your body to pursue enemies. The swarms are untargetable minions that periodically attack and poison enemies within the swarm. That swarm could maybe work well together with the toxic pustules, because if I have a toxic swarm going on at any given time that apply more poison that make the pustules explode, cool. Intelligence buff. Siphon Elements, while active, has a chance to create an infusion remnant when you freeze shock or ignite a target. Grim Feast has been completely reworked and re-enabled. Instead of granting Energy Shield, it now allows you to collect remnants from your dead reviving minions, then activating the skill to instantly revive minions based on their maximum life. That's not bad, especially if you're playing Detonate Dead. But it's in general not bad to just be able to have your minions really up at any given point. Added a new Keystone passive skill to the northwest of the Monk starting location, Hollow Palm Technique. This keystone also allows you to use quarterstaff attacks while unarmed and grants those attacks additional benefits while unarmed. No, an unarmed monk. Finally. Next keystone, northeast of the Witch Sorceress starting location, Ritual Cadence. This keystone changes your invocations to trigger skills every 2 seconds instead of all at once, but triggered skills consume less energy. The Witch is getting another one, Black Flame Covenant. This keystone converts fire damage to chaos damage, with this damage contributing to ignite chance and magnitude, and ignites inflict with fire skills deal chaos damage. Intriguing. For the Monk, Walker of the Wilds, this keystone causes Mana Leech to recover based on elemental damage types instead of physical damage. And we're getting new currency orbs that start dropping from late game campaign and maps. Greater Orb of Transmutation, Perfect Orb of Transmutation, Greater Orb of Augmentation, Perfect Orb of Augmentation, Greater Chaos Orb, Perfect Chaos Orb, Greater Regal Orb, Perfect Regal Orb, Greater Exalted Orb, Perfect Exalted Orb. These Greater and Perfect Orbs each have their own minimum modifier levels for the modifier they added to an item. That's lovely. If we're crafting, we get at least tier 4 or tier 5 modifiers. Cool. Added a new type of currency in a chorus lock, which can be used to foresee the results of the next currency item used on it. Modifying the item in any way removes the ability to foresee. 10 new unique items, 50 new base item types, 20 new endgame maps, and 15 new omens. Now to the endgame changes, because all of this is nice and dandy, but what's happening to the actual endgame? Currently, access to the most pinnacle content requires the same key at the easiest and most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at the lower difficulty, instead of wanting to run the content, you're often better off just selling it to someone who can run it at maximum difficulty. To address this, each content excluding the Arbiter of Ash will now drop splinters, which will not form into singular items. Instead of using the singular combined item in the Realm Gate, you can now just bring your splinters up and inserting the splinters into the Realm Gate, an interface will appear allowing you to pick your difficulty, each with a different entry cost. That's great. If I just want to do them first time, like speed run, get to level 85, start doing each of the challenges, see if my build kind of works, and then I'm fine with it. Or I would like to go deeper, farming more and more. The Arbiter of Ash boss fight is now a static difficulty encounter with infinite portals, previously only infinite portals at difficulty 0. The rewards of the fight now match the previous difficulty 4 rewards. The Arbiter of Ash passive skill tree has been removed, and some of the bonuses have become inherent to the Arbiter of Ash drops. Added an Uber version of the Arbiter of Ash boss fight, which requires the new Calamity fragments to access. These are obtained from Citadel bosses, but only once you've allocated the maximum number of points in your boss Atlas passive tree, ensuring those citadels are at their highest difficulty. That's a fine change, so we got always same difficulty Arbiter, but then Super Uber Arbiter. How do we get boss Atlas points then? Slaying a map boss in the area 79 plus map that has at least 6 modifiers, then an 80 plus map that has at least 6 modifiers, slaying an anomaly map boss in an area with 79 plus 6 modifiers, a Citadel map boss with 79 plus and 6 modifiers. Completing the Pinnacle of Flame quest, Ulrus Origin of the Fall no longer spawns in the logbooks, and mysterious anomalies can now appear on the Atlas. Modifiers on Waystones have been reworked. Now every modifier comes with a downside. Example, given monsters deal 20% of damage as extra cold, a specific upside, 10% monster pack size, and some amount of additional Waystone drop chance. And that goes for every single modifier. Items found in very high level areas that can have random quality can up to 30% quality. Quality currency still cannot apply more than 20% quality on an item. They're going to go for a lot on the market. If you find a good 30% quality item, oh boy, you're rich. Items that can have a maximum of 2 sockets can have a very low chance to generate a 3rd socket in high tier maps, and the same goes for 1 socket to 2 sockets on high tier maps. That is a real chase now. That's going to make people crazy. Like, I got to get level 90 and I got to play the highest tier maps and I got to find these 3 socket and the 2 socket items. And my question is, if I then Val Orb a 3 socket item, can it then get a 4th socket? I mean, a 2 socket, that's then a 3 socket, but then can I Val it for a 4th? General improvements. Unique strongboxes have their own unique map icons. Added a mini-map icon to the Rain Festival Beetle monster from the unique strongbox. Delwyn no longer appears alongside the Asmerian Wisps, as Merry Wisps appear from the hunting grounds and beyond instead of the Grellwood. Then, skill and persistent buff gems sell to vendors for gold based on their level and quality. Okay, if we need money, we can get money. The Hooded One can no longer be placed in your hideout. You're still able to identify items from him in towns. Doriani will continue to serve as the source of identifying. Certain boss arena entrances no longer have a teleport for party members to enter after the fight has started. These players can instead just walk in. Uncut skill, support, and reservation gems can now be traded through the currency exchange. I like that one. That's actually pretty good. To the big player changes. When holding down the dodge roll button, your characters will sprint. The primary purpose of this sprint feature is to make navigating areas faster when out of combat. You can no longer socket multiple copies of the same skill gem into your main skill sockets. Skills not granted by gems and skills socketed into persistent buff skill gems do not count towards the limit. You can still have multiple copies of Spectres or Tame Beast, but only one of each kind of monster. Attribute requirements on all equipment items have been lowered. Whoop whoop! Endgame base types on average have 25% less attribute requirements. That's so good. To finally be able to do more mixes, like get some intelligence stuff, intelligence, dexterity, intelligence, strength, whatever kind of combo should be easier to do. Attribute requirements on skill gems have been lowered. Thank you, with 25% less. That's also huge. Fire damage no longer inherently has a chance to ignite. Instead, it inflicts flammability on the enemy based on the damage dealt. Flammability is a debuff that lasts 4 seconds and grants all fire damage against the enemy, including the hit that applied flammability, a chance to ignite that enemy equal to their flammability magnitude. Okay, but why? Multiple hits can stack up flammability independently, meaning that a target being hit frequently and or hard enough will consistently have 100% chance to be ignited. Effects which don't hit but ignite targets as though they did, such as from Incinerate or Ignited Ground, also inflict flammability but are not able to ignite targets until the target has 100% flammability. Anything that removes, consumes, or grants immunity to ignite does the same for flammability. Shock now lasts 8 seconds on non-players by default, previously 4 seconds. It still lasts 4 seconds on players. Chill now lasts 8 seconds on non-players by default, previously 2 seconds. Chills on any target are now discarded if their magnitude is less than 30%. So we have to have more chill magnitude. Overflow effects on life, mana, energy, shield can now overflow the maximum by up to 1.5 times from 2 times. They could have even made Grim Feast simply work as it used to be, and now it's instead of, giving you double, less efficient. But hey, it is what it is. Added a new mechanic called Elemental Infusion that many elemental spells interact with. Some skills create infusions of a specific element as remnants on the ground, which can be picked up to grant you the infusion. Other skills can consume infusions of a specific type to grant additional bonuses depending on the skill. Some skills consume infusions that match the skill's elemental type, while others have cross-elemental infusions. Reloading a crossbow and switching crossbow ammunition no longer reduces the player's movement speed. Thank you. That felt so awkward. Player minions now always hit with their attacks. I wasn't even aware they didn't. Thank you. Player projectile skills now fire a minimum of 1 projectile, even if they should fire 0. Thank you, I guess. Swapping weapons is now instant. Chef's kiss. Absolute chef's kiss. Very good change. Then we're getting changed to every single Ascendancy class. And that is absolutely lovely to see them improving on things. And we're talking about wholesale buffs with really minor nerfs. Most notably is that we get more summon totems on the Tactician and also on the Warbringer. But I'll leave this up to read for yourself with a link in the description below, because this is very personally, right? If you never played the Pathfinder, it's useless for me to tell you what the changes to the Pathfinder are. Let's rather talk about the passive skill tree changes. The Elemental Equilibrium Keystone passive skill has been redesigned. It now causes infusion remnants you created to be random elements. The Eternal Youth Keystone passive will no longer cause your Life Flask to recover Energy Shield instead, and now causes your Life Flask to have 50% less recovery. The Giant's Blood Keystone passive that allows you to wield 2 two-handed weapons halves the amount of life granted by strength. Oh, that one hurts. The Glancing Blows Keystone passive skill now provides chance to evade is unlucky and chance to deflect is lucky. It no longer provides the block chance is doubled or you take 50% damage from blocked hits. The Resolute Technique Keystone passive skill now grants accuracy rating is doubled instead of your hits cannot be evaded. That's actually good for Amazon, giving her more crit. Yeah. We get 8 new clusters in the Warrior Witch Sorceress area, 15 new clusters in the Warrior area, 23 new clusters in the Merc, 17 in the Ranger. Wow, we're getting so many new clusters. And they're doing things to our skills. The base damage scaling of all player spells and secondary damage skills have been tweaked to scale better in the late game to make more skills viable. Generally speaking, spells that do not have damage number changes called out below will have near identical base damage at low levels, roughly 5% more damage at gem level 20 and roughly 20% more damage at gem level 30. The mana cost growth of all skills has been rebalanced because it was ridiculous. Generally speaking, skills will have similar mana costs at low gem levels, potentially slightly higher mana costs at some intermediate gem levels, and lower mana cost, dramatically lower, at gem levels higher than 20. For totems, this is really important because they used to like thousands of mana to just place a totem. Blink, Convalescence, and Sacrifice can no longer be activated in specific weapon sets. They are now required to be active in both weapon sets and will fail to activate if that's not possible. The movement speed penalty inflicted by skills that can be used while moving now begins to fall off slightly more quickly while using the skill. Very good. And the spirit cost of specters has been adjusted so that specters with high spirit costs are generally cheaper, while some of the cheaper specters are now more costly. But they do 25% more damage at all gem levels, so that's kind of fine. Mark skills are no longer spells. That's interesting, because mark skills used to be used with some... Mark skills are no longer spells. Intriguing. There were some really nice, massive mark skill explosion shenanigans. I wonder if they still work. Shockwave Totem, Ancestral Warrior Totem, Artillery Ballista, and Siege Ballista now use your equipped weapons. They no longer have their own flat damage, base critical hit chance, or base attack time. That changes a lot for these builds. Usually, it didn't matter what kind of weapon you have, right? If you had a very good weapon, they didn't care. But if you also had a very bad weapon that still had bonus totem ranks, they also didn't care. They just wanted the bonus totem ranks. I like that change because it allows you to finally wield the best weapon possible to actually do some damage yourself, while your totems should net total do more damage as well. Arc is now a projectile. It no longer causes explosions against shocked enemies and is no longer a payoff skill. It now changed 6 to 9 times at gem level 5 to 20. It now has 50% more shock magnitude and can now consume a lightning infusion to chain additional times and deal more damage. Okay, sounds good. The artillery ballista has been renamed to siege ballista. Now has a duration of 8 seconds. That used to be 16, so we definitely have to get a duration gem on. Bolt attack speed is now 25% of base, and bolts deal 66% attack damage. Bolt explosion radius is now 1.4 meters, previously 1.8. Explosions now deal 132% attack damage, so it's all down. The quality provides more meters of explosion radius instead of base attack time. That seems like somewhat of a nerf to that beautiful artillery ballista playstyle. And they're buffing Berserk that I've been using on quite a lot of builds, including the Amazon. Now grants more rage effect, okay. No longer grants 0.2% of physical attack leached as life per rage. Huh. Does that mean Berserk is just good now? Without a single downside. Cast on Freeze, Shock, and Ignite have been combined into a single gem. Cast on Elemental Ailment. This gem requires 100 spirit, has a minimum level of 14, and combines the energy gain conditions of all 3 previous gems. Existing copies of these gems will be updated to cast on elemental ailments. So if I freeze, shock, or ignite, I will gain energy, and then cast the spell I want to cast. I think that's actually cooler than having them each individually, because a lot of builds do multiple things. Cluster Grenade, primary grenade attack. Damage is now 490% at gem level 13 to 20. Wow, that's a heavy buff. Okay. Mini grenade attack damage is now 286 from 225 up. And it now fires exactly 18 mini grenades in a Nova, previously 14. And mini grenades are fired over 17% increased radius. Right now, cluster grenades are not played at all. They're really not worth it. I wonder if the bonus damage will make them good. Finally, Earthquakes gets nerfed in radius, but the Aftershock has more damage, and that's almost 100% more damage. Could make the existing Earthquake build even better than before. Our Explosive Spear has longer burning ground and Eye of the Winter when passing through allied flame wall. The eye itself and all the shards are now doing fire damage. Sounds a bit like the Spark build. And the flame wall itself can also consume a lightning infusion to grant additional lightning damage to projectiles that pass through it, as well as fire damage. That's actually kind of cute. If we manage to do this reasonable, then we could throw an Eye of Frost through it, and it's going to be an Frost, Fire, Lightning Eye that can be used with Cast on Ignite, Shock, Freeze, maybe? Sadly, they did nerf the Frost Wall. It deals 80% less damage in the first 0.5 seconds of its duration, so you can't just put them up and instantly blast them into smithereens. You have to put them up, wait up 0.5 seconds, and then blast them into smithereens. Galvanic shards are becoming stronger, but also only have 1 bolt loaded per clip. Previously, it used to be 5. The damage is higher. The beam attack damage is also bigger, and we fire 8 fragments per shot. Previously 6. And we have a mana cost from 10 to 48. It used to be 13 to 61. And quality now provides more fragments per shot instead of more bolts loaded per clip. Now what happened to our good old lightning spear? We fire 5 secondary bolts at all levels. Previously it used to be 3 to 8. And it no longer deals more damage when consuming a frenzy charge. Well, that still makes lightning spear extremely potent and powerful, right? What about Perfect Strike? Because Perfect Strike used to be the main skill for warriors. Perfect Strike now has an attack damage of 470 to 1029 at gem levels 5 to 20. So it's actually weaker. And a Perfect Strike now has a 35 melee strike range. It used to be 14. I take the less damage for the massive more range. Especially if you can then make it go in a cone and really hit like everything in front of you. That should work. Sadly, they're nuking our good old Rake. It is not a travel skill anymore. This tech was left over from an earlier version of the skill that traveled much further without a target, whereas the released version of Rake does not meet the criteria for a travel skill. Please note that this was not a balance motivated change. Consistency in the primary goal of gem tags, and we would have nerfed the Rake Stomping Ground into action a different way instead if it was appropriate for Rake to retain the travel tag. So no more rake stomping ground fun. It was good while it lasted. What about the Shockwave Totem? There used to be a whole build with this, but now the totems get your weapon damage. Slam now has an attack speed of 50% of base, previously 100. Slam deals 30 to 66 attack damage at gem level 3 to 20, that used to be 211%, while the Jack Ground Eruption deals 237% attack damage, previously 24 to 53. No longer has the physical tag. Quality has seconds to totem duration, previously totem base attack time. Shockwave totems cannot itself create a Jack Drought, and supports no longer apply to Shockwave totem. Okay, so we can explode Jack Ground, right? But we cannot make the Shockwave totem anyway make Jack Ground. It's not supposed to be a one-in-all solution. Our Skeletal Brutes are getting a command skill. Shattering Roar is a war cry that intimidates nearby enemies and consumes freeze on enemies and allies to deal damage in an area around those targets. The Clerics provide immunity to revived skeletons for 0 to 3 seconds, and the Frost Mages have a new command skill, Ice Armor. Ice Armor coats minions in an area in frost, reducing the damage they take from hits, causing enemies that hit them to take cold damage and count as frozen for other effects and skills. Quality now provides minions deal 20% more damage instead of 10% reduced reservation. They reduced the Skeletal Sniper's gas arrow command cooldown to 6 seconds from aid, and we get more gas cloud damage. Plus, the quality provides more damage. And the Death Storm from Storm Mages also do more damage, but they chain less. And Spark can now be cold infused to fire a large number of ice sparks in a circle, dealing both cold and lightning damage. Huh, cute. What about Spearfield? Because Spearfield used to be a whole ass build too, right? Now deals 73 to 204 of attack damage. Previously it used to be 49. It now deals 80% less damage in the first 0.5 seconds of its duration. It no longer has an unintentionally hidden 300% more damage after 0.5 seconds. I think this means rip Spearfield in the long run. We'll see if this is consistent enough to work. But there was some like unintentional super damage wombo combo happening. Also, that 80% less damage in the first 0.5 seconds is just annoying. I don't know why they want to add this to multiple skills. It just feels bad. All in all, some interesting changes and mix-ups to what we used to have before. I'm definitely intrigued to try totems now to see how they'll work, how my grenades are doing. It's interesting times ahead. We have to redo every single guide. Then we're getting tons of changes to unique items. I'll have you read them yourself, as I haven't even seen most of these uniques or ever owned them, and I don't use any uniques for any build. This again is a very personal one. Item changes. Some of the most important things. Orb of Chance are now more likely to succeed on amulets, rings, belts, and charms, because the chance was almost non-existent. Then they're nerfing all of our damage bonuses, armor, evasion, energy shield bonuses, and the cold fire lightning damage bonuses. All of that is getting slightly nerfed. What happens to monsters? Lowered the growth of monster evasion rating with level. This results in level 80 monsters having 30% less evasion rating than before. Thank you very much. Failing to collect all the hourglasses during the Xeric temporal fight no longer fails your Trial of Sekimas, now instead only damaging your honor. If you fail to collect the hourglass of Xeric, the temporal now enters a secondary phase where the hourglasses and slow debuff persists but at a much slower rate. Boom. No more instant loss due to some stupid RNG. The life of most Act 3 bosses have been reduced by 15%. Not needed, still welcome. Rogue Exiles now get additional life scaling from level 65 onwards, resulting in roughly life increase from tier 1 Waystones to tier 16. They were a bit easy to kill, and they're supposed to be a cool, fun pinnacle challenge, right? And probably the number one change, reduce the number of river hacks that spawn in the Drowned City. Screw your river hacks. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you say? What do you think? Are we going to play? I will promise you that we'll play every single class again, every single Ascendancy. And we will redo every single Path of Exile build we have done so far. All of these overpowered in 1 hour builds, they'll be from the ground up, reworked. But I have to play everything for that. So expect from August on, every single day to be Path of Exile, every single video to be Path of Exile, every single live stream to be Path of Exile. Which change do you like the most, and which class would you like to see first? Put that in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so I can see you on the live streams and we can enjoy everything together.